At 11 p.m. on November 27, 2025, a fleet of Sea Baby drones slid quietly from their camouflage site within the Danube River basin, moving their composite material through the Black Sea towards their destination some 200 kilometers away. Two oil tankers, the Kairos and the Virat, were sailing off the Turkish coast, soon to meet their fate in a war where drones worth $221,000 pursue ships valued at $50 million. This wasn't simply a strike. This was an economic assault. The Kairos was constructed in the year 2002, so it was 23 years old. It was 274 meters in length, with a capacity of storing almost 150,000 tons of oil. But this is the thing with Shadow Fleet oil tankers. They don't merely haul oil, they haul flags, like a spy hauls passports. The Kairos was registered under Gambia, but prior to that, the flags that flew were that of Panama, Greece, and Liberia. It even had a different name called Katiuska before being renamed Kairos, finally. It was sanctioned in the European Union in May of 2025, as well as the UK in July. By August, it was acquired by a firm from China, Alafia Trading. Virat was relatively new, registered in 2018, but still had identity issues. Currently or previously registered under Barbados, Comoros, Liberia, Panama, and finally, Gambia. US sanctioned Virat in January 2025. The EU did so in July. Then in September, the UK. Afterwards, in January 2025, this Virat was also sold to a Chinese firm. Both were finally removed from Gambia's registry for submitting false documents. Both had their flags marked as unknown. These ships form the so-called Shadow Fleet. These ships operate in such a manner that they do not contravene sanctions imposed by the global body through clever ways of ownership, as well as frequent changes in their identity. Each trip would provide as much as $70 million. Do the math, with thousands of such ships undertaking thousands of such journeys, this translates to billions in the coffers of the Russian government. It is not a question of destroying ships. It's all about disrupting the flow of cash that helps assemble artillery shells, missiles, and whatever else would fuel such a war. The approaching weapon was 6 meters in length, 2 meters in width, composed mostly of composite materials that reflected radar signals as well as a wooden surfboard. It was the Sea Baby drone, an indigenous Ukrainian solution for fighting the Navy if you don't have one. Designed in the year 2025, this improved model was powered by two 200-horsepower engines that enabled the craft to move at speeds of up to 49 knots. This translates to speeds of 56 miles per hour across water, which is much faster than most Coast Guard patrol boats. It carried a warhead that weighed 850 kilograms. This was almost 2,000 pounds of high explosive, shaped and designed to blast through steel armor that was 40 millimeters thick. It was designed for a range of 1,500 kilometers, and that meant that the whole Black Sea was suddenly a hunting ground. But this is what made it so hazardous. They had redundant communications, GPS satellite navigation that was immune from jamming. Plus, their targeting was designed with AI. So, whatever you did, if you were able to intercept their communications, the drone still knew where they were going. Cost comparison. The Sea Babies cost approximately $221,000. Kairos, Virat, together, valued over $100 million. Each shipment carried 70 million barrels of oil. And as if the cost comparison wasn't overwhelmingly in their favor, this is the system that caused the Black Sea Fleet of Russia to leave Sevastopol for Novorossiysk, some 200 miles. These drones were able to cross through open water via GPS waypoints, as well as satellite uplinks, traversing more than 200 kilometers from their launch point. Factors such as weather were as would be expected in mid-November. Swells with 2-meter height, temperatures of 15 degrees Celsius, with heavily overcast skies that were utterly bad for any human observer trying to identify something that was only 0.6 meters above the waterline. These two ships were identified through their AIS tracking systems, and this is where the tragedy's irony award winner comes in. The ship's own navigation safety signals gave them away. Kairos had sailed through the Bosphorus Strait around noon on November 28, heading northeast for the Russian port of Novorossiysk, sailing at 12 knots. Virat had been anchored in the north of the Bosphorus since November 4th, pending clearance or instructions. They were both sailing in ballast, meaning that they did not carry any oil on board. Ukrainian intelligence had been aware of both ships for weeks. Opportunities presented when weather, position, and readiness were synchronized. Turkish Coast Guard was patrolling the vicinity, but this was international space right off the edge of the Turkish exclusive economic zone. Other than causing an incident, there wasn't much that could be done concerning Ukrainian drones targeting Russian-affiliated tanker ships off the coast, some 30 miles off. At about 3 p.m. on November 28th, the leading drone detected the thermal signature of Kairos 3 kilometers away. Indeed, with its engines banked to operate at a temperature of some 200 degrees Celsius, the heat signature contrasted clearly with the temperature of the water, which was a cool 15 degrees, as stark as a blowtorch in the night. They split their drone force. Some drones were assigned to Kairos, others to Viret, which was some 13 kilometers away. Kairos was crewed with 25 Indian nationals who were, as of this moment, blissfully ignorant of their own fate, as their ship was now declared a target. The ship was moving at 12 knots, with its officers on routine watch, likely thinking about dinner, the next port of call, or virtually anything else. But not this. That self-guiding bombs were coming their way with a speed their own was hopelessly incapable of matching. About 4:30, the first drone bomb hit Kairos on the starboard side. This warhead weighed 850 kilograms. Upon impact, the warhead detonated. A jet with a speed of 8 kilometers per second was formed, 8 times faster than a rifle bullet. However, the hull plate, which consisted of 40mm steel, was designed for the purpose of holding loads as well as protecting against waves. The blast was traveling through the enclosed spaces of the engine room. This is where physics increases the consequences. Enclosed spaces heighten the blast effects. Shock waves reflected off metal walls. More shock waves formed. Fuel line breaks began. Hydraulic systems shut down. Electrical systems ended. Everything goes down. Every system goes down, explained crew members. Fires broke out in the sealed areas. You have burning diesel fuel. You don't have much air. You've built a blast furnace in a steel box, explained one. The captain sent out a distress call. We are being attacked by drones. Turkish Coast Guard dispatchers ordered helicopters. A second drone strike 15 seconds later was insurance against any chance of being repaired. By the time the explosions ceased, Kairos was badly damaged. It was finished. The engine room was flooded. Propulsion systems were down. The ship was immobilized, drifting with the current. All crew members, 25 in total, were safely disembarked via life rafts. Turkish helicopters recovered them. There were no injuries. However, the ship was a constructive total loss. About 30 minutes passed, then the rest of the drones turned towards Viret. Viret's crew was aware of the distress call from Kairos, so they were on their highest alert. However, being alert will do them no good if they can't see where the attack will come from. They looked around for airborne drones, since that's what drones do. They fly. These drones do not fly. They move along the surface of the water, keeping low in the troughs, traveling at speeds of 49 knots. Virat's team was able to identify them from a distance of 100 meters as low-profile boats that were going around their ship. By this stage, however, it was already much too late. Virat was hit first on the starboard side in the engine room. Conversation between the crew members indicated confusion. At first, they believed that this was some kind of airborne drone that attacked them, given that the explosion was on their side. But this explosion tore apart their engine room. Unfortunate as this was, there was neither a huge fire as in the case of the Kairos, nor structural issues. However, they believed that there were a total of 4 or 5 hits. However, the engine room was damaged, though not beyond repair. An uneven distribution of water through multiple leaks caused the ship to list 3 degrees to starboard. But Viret's crew did not behave like Kairos' crew. They remained on the ship. Let's talk about why tankers are so vulnerable to this kind of attack. A commercial oil tanker has a hull made of 12 to 18 millimeter steel plate. That's about half to 3/4 of an inch. It's sufficient for carrying cargo and handling waves, but it's not designed for combat. These ships have no armor, no weapons, no defensive systems, and minimal crew. Compare that to a modern warship. Warships have close-in weapon systems, rapid-fire guns specifically designed to shoot down incoming threats, missile batteries, and actual armored sections. They have large crews trained in damage control. A destroyer might have 300 people aboard. A tanker the size of Kairos has 25. Now look at the economics. A Sea Baby drone cost $221,000. The Kairos was worth at least $50 million. Each full voyage could carry $70 million worth of oil. At 6 to 8 voyages per year, that's $420 to $560 million in annual revenue. That revenue directly funds artillery shells, missiles, and military operations. The Ukrainian cost for this operation was roughly $1 million for all the drones involved. The Russian loss is hundreds of millions in denied future revenue. That's asymmetric warfare perfected. And here's what makes it even more effective. Insurance companies are watching every one of these attacks. After each successful strike, premiums increase for the entire Shadow fleet. Some insurance companies are now refusing coverage entirely for Black Sea transits. When insurance costs plus hazard pay plus repair costs exceed your profit margin, the entire business model collapses. You don't need to sink every ship, you just need to make the route economically unviable. By Friday night, both vessels were mission-killed. Kairos was a total loss, fire burning for over 36 hours. Virat was severely damaged, awaiting a Russian ocean-going tug dispatched from Novorossiysk. 8 to 10 hours away. The second strike. Now, let's speak of the weaknesses that oil tankers possess against such an attack. A commercial oil tanker's body consists of steel with a thickness of 12 to 18 millimeters. This is half to 3/4 of an inch. They possess enough strength for transporting loads as well as withstanding waves, but they do not possess strength that would serve them in battle. Oil tankers possess neither armor nor any form of weapon. Comparing this with a modern warship, warships possess close-in weapon systems, rapid-fire guns that target downcoming threats, missile launching systems, as well as real armored hulls. They also comprise huge crews. A warship such as a destroyer may consist of 300 crew members. A tanker with the size of Kairos possesses 25. Now, economics. A Sea Baby drone costs $221,000. A Kairos was priced at least $50 million. Each full mission would transport oil valued at $70 million. This would translate to revenue of between 6 and 8 missions in a year, estimated between $420 million and $560 million. This revenue directly translates to the production of artillery shells, missiles, and other military endeavors. The Ukrainian side spent only $1 million on this entire operation. And here's what makes this so effective. These insurance companies are closely monitoring all of these attacks. After every successful strike, the premiums on the entire shadow fleet go up. Some insurance companies are already stopping coverage for routes through the Black Sea. At some point, the costs of insurance, hazard pay, and repairs exceed your profit. You don't have to sink every boat. Just make it uneconomical. Both ships were mission killed by Friday night. Kairos was a write-off, fire raging for more than 36 hours. Virat was badly damaged, awaiting the arrival of a Russian ocean-going tug from Novorossiysk, some 8 to 10 hours away. The final accounting reflects that both ships were considered total losses. Jointly, they would transport about 265,000 tons of oil. At the current cost, that would translate into $70 million per trip. With 6 to 8 trips within a year, that's denied revenue of $420 to $560 million annually. This report clearly describes that the two ships were considered total losses with regards to their accounting. Together, they would be able to haul. However, this is not merely a concern for two ships. There appear to be approximately 400 to 600 Shadow Fleet ships operating worldwide that avoid sanctions imposed by the West. Following such strikes, the premium rate for Black Sea voyages increased between 300% to 500%. Workers began demanding double or triple their salaries as additional compensation. A number of ships began refusing the Black Sea run. Companies withdrew from the Shadow Fleet services, disposing of their ships or seeking other routes. However, some ships began turning off their AIS transponders so that their movements would not be detected. But this gives rise to other issues as well. When you do not appear on any tracking system, all the coastal authorities turn suspicious. Port inspections multiply. Ports begin refusing docking facilities if their documents appear unusual. What Ukraine has produced is not merely a weapon. They produced a whole new type of warfare. Sea Baby's design as a suicide drone is not the only design that Sea Baby possesses. There now exist other designs such as those for shore bombardment with rocket launchers, self-defense with gun turrets, mine-laying, and reconnaissance roles. In December of 2024, Sea Baby, which was equipped with guns, fought off Russian helicopters. Sea Babies can now defend themselves. Although they operate in the Ukrainian Navy, their units are independent, and they form the world's first uncrewed surface vessel combat unit, called the 385th Brigade. They use only Sea Baby drones. However, drone missions do not consist of kamikaze attacks anymore. After completing their task, they come back home, recharge, and repeat their task. Price point: the hallmarks of this being a revolution. You, with your $221,000, can operate a whole armada of them for the cost of one missile corvette, and they can strike a target that would cost a modern Navy's multi-million-dollar missile. This is asymmetric warfare. This is transformation. For the 5th time in 2025, Russia's Shadow Fleet learned a lesson they keep failing to internalize. The Black Sea isn't a sanctuary, it's a hunting ground, and no amount of flag changes, ownership shuffles, or false documentation will protect you from a weapon system that costs less than a luxury car and can reach you anywhere in 1,500 kilometers. The Shadow Fleet just discovered they're swimming with sharks, and these sharks don't need to come up for air.